Hey guys, Hannah here from Reality Awareness. My name is Hannah, the Life Purpose Queen, awakening you to your dreams. If this is the first time to my live stream, please comment below, say hello, and let me know where you are from around the world. I would love to hear from you, where you're tuning in from. And this is a really potent topic that came to me this morning to talk about. Someone in my Reality Awareness support group, which is on Facebook. If you're not in there, it's a free support group. You can send me a message if you'd like the link to join us in there for free. Right now, there's a lot of energy going around, a lot of past stuff. Pluto's retrograde for like the next 12 months or something. Well, maybe less than that now, but there's a lot of past stuff coming up, past toxic relationships, past all this sort of thing, right? And what I want to talk about today, right? There was a comment in my Reality Awareness support group, and I really want to share this because I feel like it's a really potent, important message and can help a lot of people, yeah? So the comment was, past toxic relationships keep coming up lately. It's weird. It was so damaging at the time, but I still feel so connected to her. I don't get it. I had to leave my city to clear of her and the energy, but part of me knew there was a good person who was unable to show up at the time. So there was a good person in there, but she just wasn't able to show up at the time. But I'm still so drawn to her, right? What's this about? I really want to speak to this, yeah? And he continues on saying, why such a tie? Why did we work out each other through so much? Why, when it could have worked out if we'd come into love instead of fear, the ego won, meaning fear, right? All meant to be, dodged a bullet, easy to think differently about it all years down the track, missed out on a soulmate for compatibility. Was there even one there? Sad when you can't help but love. Okay, let me really speak to this because I personally have been that woman who was unable to open to a loving man. I was in codependent relationship for 5 years on and off, and I've got a lot to say about this, right? So I really want to talk to this message. So say hi. I can see a few of you joining live, which is awesome. I'm going to share this live stream and then I'm going to be present with this topic because it's really, really potent, pertinent, and I feel like can help a lot of people. When I saw this comment, Spirit was like, you need to talk about this. And I'm like, okay, because I do have a lot to share about it, right? And it kind of stems on from the live stream I did the other day on healing masculine wounding. So it's kind of interesting, yeah? Must be something going on in the field. And when I was thinking about it, I'm like, well, technically we're stepping out of the patriarchal energy, you know what I mean? Like we're stepping out of this patriarchal energy from eons gone by. So it kind of makes sense with all this masculine healing going on, yeah? Martina, Karen, hello. All right, let me share this publicly and I shall be present with you. All right, this one. Yay, I love it when it shares quickly. It's awesome. All right. Love this topic. Pluto retrograde. Yes, it's Pluto, right? Yes. Lexina, hello. All right. So this is awesome, yeah? So the whole thing that came to mind when this person had commented in my Reality Awareness support group, I was like, I'm going to live stream on this because I've got a lot to say, right? But there was a good person inside, you know, and we just and this is the thing, right? And the thing that I want to speak to about this and why I can speak to about it is, like I said, I was in a codependent, super toxic relationship for 5 years. Now, I don't like these labels, right? I just want to be clear that I don't like using labels because labels are very limiting. They capture a person, they stick on a person. It's our judgment of a person and it doesn't help them to shift, okay? Labels are good for understanding. Labels are good for conscious understanding. And then we need to move into the next level of mastery, and that's removing the labels, okay? So really awesome for explaining, but then let's remove the labels. So I'm just putting that little disclaimer in because even though I say toxic, unhealthy, codependent, bad, blah, 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 I hate using labels, okay? Because they literally, when we're labeling something, it sticks on it and it makes it stuck, okay? We want to rip that label off and just tune into the energy and shift the energy of it, okay? So for the sake of this live stream, I'm going to use labels, okay? So when I say, you know, I talk about my ex in the 5-year toxic relationship and it was so bad and blah, 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 like, you know, like ultimately I am so grateful for that 5-year relationship, because it would not have landed me here where I am today. Hey, Cody from Canada. Awesome. Awesome. It would not have landed me where I am here today in this divine union of a relationship that seems to be unfolding like magic with complete freedom every single moment of every single day. This piece that I want to share now, and it's not even about like, oh, now here I am in this relationship. It's not about that. The piece about the 5-year relationship with my ex is I just want to point out that I would not be the person I am today without walking through what I did with him. That relationship taught me how to love. Now, speaking from a woman's perspective, speaking from the person who, in my Reality Awareness support group, this man was sharing about the past toxic relationships keep coming up for him. It was so damaging at the time, but I still feel so connected to her, right? Now, a couple of little points on that, yeah? Awesome, Martina, that's awesome. Lovely to hear that. He was talking about Uluru last night, actually, that experience, or the night before. Hi, Glenn. Hello. All right, so it was so damaging. I'm going to pick this kind of post apart, okay, because all pieces of it are really, really important, yeah? So past toxic relationships keep coming up. It's weird. So it was so damaging at the time, but I still feel so connected to her. Okay, now a couple of things with that. Okay, now whether you're a male and you're really attached to and are feel connected to a female, or whether you're a man and feel connected to, the other way around, right? Either way, I just want you to flick it to whatever resonates with you. I did a live stream a while ago on the attachments we make to our spiritual gurus, or, and ultimately we can have an attachment to anything. Yeah, anything can become an addiction. Anything can become an attachment. Now, the key to, kind of unraveling an attachment is that when we're attached to something, or we feel so connected, and we still feel so connected even though we're so toxic and so it's like that piece, we still feel so connected. The piece that you really need to understand here is that if we don't have our own strong spiritual connection, we will connect through a person, yeah, or a thing. Now, it's a little bit different for, say, an addiction like smoking or drugs or alcohol or something. It's a little bit different because more we're covering up feelings, but at the same time, it's still the same. Like, there's no kind of fine line of like this definite fine line, right? So I'm leaving it really open, but let's talk about people and relationships right now. So a codependent relationship is where we've got two people and we've got source and spirit, say up the top here, right? And two people. And instead of connecting to their own source and their own spiritual guidance and their own energy source, which is spirit, yeah, through meditation or other spiritual practices, they connect through each other. Now, sometimes one person will connect through another person. Sometimes it's both trying to connect to spirit and get source fed through spirit, and it ends up in a toxic relationship, right? Now, there's so many different threads and fine lines to this, and you didn't listen to your intuition in the start, and blah, 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 and all pieces to it, right? But for this example's sake, right, when he says, it was so damaging at the time, but I still feel so connected to her. Okay, now the pieces that you need to pull apart out of this is, I still feel so connected to her. What were the pieces from this relationship, right? And this is a process. I'm giving you a healing process right now. So you can get a pen and paper out. You can watch this on replay. You can come back. You can do this over and over again with so many different relationships, and you're going to pull in your divine union. You're going to pull in different parts of yourself rather than look for it in another person. Okay, this is how we heal into wholeness to then attract something that's come out of the blue, for an example. When you feel so connected to her or him, when you're like, oh my God, why was it so toxic, but I felt so connected, I still feel so connected. What is that? Okay, what is that about that person? Get a pen and paper, write down the qualities. I felt really nurtured. I felt really cared for. I felt really loved. I felt like nothing else mattered. I felt like like pinpoint those qualities out of that relationship. Okay, I still feel so connected to her. What are those qualities that you still feel so connected from? Okay, let's take a little bit deeper. That now list of qualities that you have, the feelings that makes that relationship feel the way it did. Hey, Doreen. right? What you're going to do is take that deeper and go, this is where we pick apart things, okay? We're going to take it deeper and we're going to go, okay, how did those feelings reflect to me how I felt in childhood? Now, to really pick apart this sort of really healing level, right? Giving you a big healing process right now. I didn't know I was going to do this, but hey, this is what I would be recommending to my clients, for example. Okay, you've got the qualities, and I still feel so connected to her. I feel so like miss her, but why was it so toxic? Get the good feeling qualities, get the toxic qualities. Okay, write them down, label them. Yeah, label them. 2 bits of paper. Oh, there's 4. 2. Yeah, good ones, bad ones. Write them down, label them. Then ask the question on both pieces, how did these feelings correlate? How do they relate? What memories come back about my childhood? Oh yeah, this is how I felt with mum or dad or another caregiver or blah, 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 right? Label them. Maybe you're like, there was none of that in my childhood, but maybe all the toxic stuff was in your childhood and the good stuff wasn't, or something, okay? Because until we energetically unhook from our parents, energetically, doesn't mean you never have to talk to them again, doesn't mean you don't love them, doesn't mean any of that, okay? We're energetically unhooking, because if you're in relationships that your patterns are repeating and you're like, how is this happening again with this other person? Why is this happening again? Why am I attracting the same thing? Why is this going on? If it's the same pattern, you need to be doing this process. Okay, we need to unpick and energetically unhook from our parents and from our childhood first experiences of relationship, because whether you're a female in a man relationship or vice versa or anything else, right, our first definition of a relationship starts with our mother and our father, or pertinent caregivers as we're growing up, right? Now, if you haven't done this sort of a process to energetically unhook from your family system, particularly your mum and your dad, and what this, is being played out in your current relationships, if you haven't done this, those generational threads will still be playing out. It's a conscious unhooking from your mother and father, which is what is playing out in your mother and father experience of a relationship. Okay, now again, if you're in a relationship and you actually love it and you do this process, it doesn't mean the relationship's going to end. Maybe it will. Maybe that's what's supposed to happen. But maybe you're clearing out all this energetic stuff so that you can be super present with who you are now and what you want in a relationship, rather than all your past dragging into it, infiltrating it, and playing out patterns unconsciously. Okay, so when this person in my reality awareness support group that I'm answering this on live stream, because I know it could help so many people, it was so damaging at the time, but I still feel so connected. So I'd be looking at your childhood and I'd be going, so were you in toxic environment growing up? Was there arguing, abuse? Or, and it might not be with your immediate family, it might be with extended family, it might be with something you're surrounded with, okay? Because usually that will play out. Now, what happens in that instance, right? We grow up thinking that's normal. And I know I spoke about this the other day, right? And those brain neural pathways are what we are used to. And that feels like love. So when we're like, I don't know, it was so damaging, but I still feel so connected to her. It's like, yeah, because your brain neural pathways are used to that on some level. Yeah. And then it's us rewiring, retraining, and feeling what love feels like, right? And maybe we're like, well, I don't know, right? But it's looking at people, it's researching, it's imagining what it would be like rather than what it's not, right? Usually we're really clear on what we don't want, but we're not clear on what we do want, because we don't know what that's like. It's a whole nother reality, right? And so when we can do this energetic unhooking process from our mother and father, and this whole energetically removing ourselves, right? We have a clear slate. Now, what's really important on the clear slate piece, once we've gone through and we've done that process, is we can then write into existence, and I mean journal every day, not just once or twice. I mean write every day for a good chunk of time, meaning 12 months, 18 months, 3 years, and you might be like, wow, that's a long time, I'm not doing that. And I'm like, well, how old are you to start with, right? So maybe you're 35, and it's like, well, how long has this pattern been going on for? And it's like, well, I don't know, my whole life. If you just do it for a day or a month, that whole 35 years and this tiny little snippet of time is not really going to balance much out, right? We want to be doing it consistently for a chunk of time. Guess it depends how bad you want it, how committed you are, and how disciplined you are to a new reality. That's something that's really deep in the love rather than the codependent toxic stuff, right? Which is a process to step away from. Amanda says, oh, what a time to do this life. I just ended a 20-year friendship that's been pulling back and forth for a while now. Oh, so interesting, right? So whether it's a partnership or a friendship, it's so like potent, right? And it's so important to go through the grieving process. And I imagine you are, Amanda. So that's so interesting. Yes, this cycle's been going on for 5 years. Yeah, they do, don't they? Hey, Penny. Leanne, hi. All right, so let's check in this next bit. Okay. So I don't get it. So hopefully that will help explain a little bit why we're like, it was so damaging, but oh my God, I've never felt so much love in all my life, right? Because even in those sorts of relationships, usually the sex is off the hook, right? Now for me in my past relationship, that was a thing that kept me going back because like I never felt so much love from that man before, right? But my intuition was like, I can't be with this man. I don't want to be with this man. But I was so confused in a sense of like, but it felt so good and I was feeling the love, but then I would like pull back and I'd be like, well, the shit, right? And so it was like all this like unconscious patterning from my childhood playing out in these relationships, right? And then with the sexual chemistry is because the brain neural pathways, that's what we grew up in, it feels safe. It feels like home. It feels like everything we've ever wanted because it feels like home. Like on a real deep, that's like home. It sounds a bit like, whoa, like feeling like home with parents, but in a relationship and sex, like it's kind of a bit weird in a way, right? But we're talking about brain chemistry stuff, huge. Yeah, the sex was, wow, huge chemistry, exactly. Brain chemistry explains a lot. Yeah, brain chemistry, right? And the thing is, and the thing that kept tripping me back, and that's why I went on for 5 years and back, because the sex was freaking off the hook. Yeah? Stepping into a healthy relationship, it's a different feeling, right? As my mentor said, divine union feels different. I said, yes, very different, right? But ultimately, when everything is aligned, and the way I describe it, for me right now, it's like every single chakra connects. Not just the chakra, not just the energetic center, but the consciousness of each chakra connects. There was nothing else, Leanne says. Yes, exactly. Same with me and my ex. It was only the sex that kept us together. Well, there are things, but for long-term stability, commitment, wasn't enough for me. Now, as people say, love heals everything. Love is all you need. And I'm like, because he used to say stuff to me like that. And I'm like, love isn't everything, right? And it is, but it isn't. Because there's more to a relationship than just sex. There's more to a relationship than just the sexual chemistry. It doesn't sustain a relationship. Yeah. And for me now, what I experience is that every single chakra connects on a consciousness level as well. Every consciousness of every chakra is like a match. Whereas in the past relationship was only the sex. That's not sustainable. Not sustainable. Yeah. And it's a whole different brain rewiring, patterning, different feeling. But it's sustainable. It's solid. It's stable. Yeah. Rather than up and down and freaking like in like emotional shit for months and hurting and fighting and fuck, it's draining, let alone distracting from your life purpose. Just saying. Doreen says, my relationship ended in December. I still feel connected. This has been a painful experience for me. I'm trying to de-sponge from him. Awesome. I know you've got this sponge clearing meditation, Doreen. Please rewatch the start of this live stream, Doreen. I think you only joined... I don't know, did you only just join recently? I thought you might want to rewatch this live stream, please, please, please. So yeah, and we have to remember that it's a brain rewiring. Yeah, we got to train ourselves to feel the healthy stuff. Like it's a big thing. So, you know, and the thing is when there is that ultimate connection of all, it's a complete different feeling, but never go back. Never go back after this becomes normal. No way. Any day, I would wait. Okay, so I don't get it. I had to leave my city to clear of her and the energy. But part of me knew there was a good person. I just want to say too, when you say I had to leave my city to clear her and the energy, and it's so interesting, right? Because I felt that too. Leaving the coast, I was like, wow, I just couldn't be there anymore. And then when I left, even the first time, I was like, I have to leave the place, like to leave the relationship, even though we weren't together. So interesting. So I so get that. But part of me knew there was a good person who was there, unable to show up at the time. Okay, this is the piece I want to speak to, guys. My ex, this was such a turning point to me, okay? So our 5-year on and off relationship, let me break it down a little bit. Okay, my ex, my codependent toxic ex that taught me how to love, that taught me how to be the person that I am today with this level of consciousness, with being able to hone my energy and do what I do, whatever. Taught me how to love, basically, okay? Because I didn't know how to love in the start. And he would always say that to me. He would throw these things at me. And then, and he'd say, through all the shit and all the stuff you throw at me and all the blah, 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 he's like, but there's a good person in there. And he'd say, there's a good person in that heart. There's that Hannah in there. There's something in there. She needs to come out. And that's why he said he always stayed, even through all the shit that I threw at him and abused him and all that stuff. Because I used to be that person. Okay? So let me break down the 5-year relationship, okay? 5 years, starting here. The first 2 years, toxic hell crap, yeah? On and off so badly. Now, in the start, probably about, 3 to 6 weeks in, perhaps, I knew intuitively I needed to leave. Did I leave? No. So right from the beginning, I didn't trust my intuition, okay? Really want to note that. Because I didn't trust my intuition, I now see, right? Because I didn't trust my intuition, I kept going back against my intuition. Then when shit went bad or whatever drama happened or whatever, I threw shit at him, I would abuse him, blah, 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 go around this cycle, right? Because my intuition knew I wasn't supposed to be there, okay? So Leanne says, yes, I always saw the potential in him, but that doesn't mean he'll reach it. Exactly, I was holding on to the potential too. Now, I just want to point out, a little side note here, the potential we're seeing in that man, flip it around if you're other, right? I always say, potential we're seeing in that man is the reflection of the potential of your inner masculine that needs to come out itself. Because usually we're in a relationship like that and we're like changing them or want them to change or they're not good enough or blah, 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 blah. Even if we're not saying it consciously and unconsciously, they feel it, yeah? So that was a little side note, right? We see the potential in somebody else. It's the reflection of the potential in ourselves. So the first 2 years were bad, right? I think it was like probably maybe into the last bit of the second year, definitely in the third year. Maybe it was in the second year. I started seeing my mentor Lois. Freaking amazing, right? Would not be here today without Lois and without my ex. So much credit goes to them. Yes, I've done the work. I give credit to myself. But those two reflections, I still see Lois today. Yeah. Hey, Tammy. So those first 2 years, yeah. And then I started seeing Lois that was counseling and so Lois and I have done the same training back in 2005. She went on to do her psych degree or more. I think she's master. And then she has her own stuff, which is just freaking amazing. And this is why I'm like, give me more. So Lois is amazing. Anyway, if you want her contact details and you know you need to work with her, please send me a message and I'll pass it on. Anyway, the point is that I started working with Lois and I consistently kept going and turning up and trying all these things in the relationship and blah, blah, blah. So this went on probably for like really solidly. It was like intense, like weekly for quite chunks of time. For the next up to year 4 in the relationship. Yeah. And then I still see Lois, not as often as I did back then, but it was a big part of my growth and progress back then. And we're like on and off still. By kind of like the 3rd to 5th year, there was longer and longer gaps in between us being together rather than in the start. It was like, more on. In the end, it was more off. Does that make sense? Yeah. And the reason that I'm sharing this is because this was a really big turning point for me. Okay. Now, in between, in this 5-year relationship, when there was off points, I was with other men. In relationship, wasn't like, I was just going and sleeping with people. I was like, trying to build a relationship or whatever. And it wasn't like I did it on purpose. It's just what happened, right? And when my ex and I would get back together, he would always throw it in my face and he'd be like, and you slept with other people? I'm like, hang on a sec, we weren't even together. Like, do you know what I mean? And like, he would always throw that back, you know, time and time again. I'm like, you need to go see Lois or something, because you keep throwing that back in my face. We actually weren't together, like, blah, blah. Anyway, side note. So the point is that it was in that last 5th year, because that's why I was done after that. For me, that was a turning point. Because after a while, and after, you know, working with Lois and everything like that, it got to a point where I had shifted into the person. I'd shifted into the person that my ex always said in the start, there's somebody inside there. There's somebody in that heart. There's that Hannah, that beautiful, loving Hannah in there. She's in there. Forget all this other shit. There's a bee just flew on the phone just then. Not sure what bee means, but anyway, the goddess or something. Inside there, you know, you would say, there's Hannah, that loving Hannah. Forget all this shit, the drama and stuff. There's this Hannah, and that's who I love. And I was like, oh, okay, you know. And so eventually I did all this work after all these years, and I know that I became that person, fully loving, fully accepting, like the whole thing, whatever. Like, it's a bit hard to explain, right? But I came out sort of thing. Now, there was a point, and we were, I don't know, we'd had a few drinks one night or something or whatever, like we were together, and I don't know, because like it was always a thing, like he would smoke and everything, and I'd be like, you have to quit, I don't like it, blah, blah, blah. In the start, it was really bad, right? And he's like, you make me smoke again because of this shit, and it's all because of your reactions and your drama. I've done live streams on the reactions and stuff in the past, right? Because I was like, well, and that really woke me up too. There's so much to this. Anyway, keep to the point. And anyway, it got to a point where he was smoking whatever, and he's like, oh, you don't care about this anymore? And I'm like, well, no, you just whatever. Like, you know, and he could obviously energetically feel the shift, because in the past it was always a thing. And, you know, like energetically, I felt different to him. Yeah. And so a few things came up, and that night, like I remember it so clearly, and he'd said to me, he's like, I don't know, he sat down, and I was like, what's going on? Like, and he's like, well, I don't know. I said, well, what is it? He said, I don't love this new Hannah. Like, drop the mic, drop the fucking glass. I was like, what? I was like, but this is the me that you always said was inside of me. Now I've come out. Now this is what you've always been saying. And he doesn't love that Hannah anymore. Now for me, I went through obviously a big grieving process about it, right? At the same time, it wasn't like a howling mess of abandonment, grieving. It was a like, wow, I have shifted that much that I'm not energetically a match in that vibration attracted anymore. So fucking huge, right? The work works when we work it. When we do the internal work, when we turn up and we do the work, and whatever you're being guided to do, personal development wise, the work works. Now that whole experience for me was huge, right? Going from full toxic, not letting anyone in, full masculine, push everybody away, like start drama and stuff, only because I didn't trust my intuition to leave in the start, by the way. Just saying, little side note, or none of that would have happened, but I also wouldn't be the person I am today. Everything's meant for a reason, blah, 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 right? But that pivotal moment in time when he said, but I don't love this Hannah, I'm like, this is the part of me that you've been saying is inside the loving Hannah. Didn't love it anymore. The neural pathways were different. Wasn't chemistry attractive to him anymore. So freaking interesting, right? So, yes. Glenn says, wow, what you've just said was profound and resonated about the vibrational change, creating the mismatch. Yes, it does, right? And that's a shift. And this is where our reality shifts. That's so scary for some people. But I was grieving because there was no way I was going back to the old Hannah. No way. No way. Of course I was grieving that, but at the same time I was like, this is a gift. And I never went back after that. It's so huge, right? It is so huge. Oh, it's really cold. It's really cold here. B's, work, social life, order, and unity of effort. Or unity of effort. Yeah, it's the hive, isn't it? Oh my gosh, same here. With the knowing on in the early days, my guides were all in the kitchen with me, telling me it was domestic violence, and still didn't listen. 7 years later, I finally left. Truth be told, I saw it the first moment. I saw his profile picture, but silly me gave benefit of the doubt. We see it, don't we? We see it, but then we go through these experiences and then we become this person and we're like, whoa, okay, not doing that again, right? But sometimes we can go through hell to do it, right? Yeah, that's what happens. They can feel it. Yeah, they do. Yes, that can happen in an instant too. The shift. Yes, right? And sometimes we're like, yes, this is what we want and this is good. And then we have this shift and we're like, but I thought this person was the one. And then we get upset. But then we also realize it's that we could feel it both. We know that this was the gift to turn us to who we are now, to then meet our match. Even though I didn't know that at the time, but I was like, there's no way I'm going back to the old Hannah. I'm sorry, but if you don't love me, thank you very much. You've made me love me, then I'm willing to be in a relationship that's less than what I want. Like, that's the gift of it. That's the gift of becoming the love that somebody in a toxic relationship has shown you, that has threads all the way back to childhood that we can unhook from, and then come into a place where we love ourselves more than we do any relationship outside of ourselves, which has extra high boundaries, extra strong self-love, self-care, self-worth, like really high standards that some people are like, wow, that's too much work, when ultimately this gives us the healthy life that we've always been craving, and we're like, why are we in this shit stuff? But it's a process to get there. And you have to be willing to do the work. You have to be willing to do the work. All the time. Leanne says he taught me to trust myself. Yes, they give us the biggest gifts, right? And we become in that much of an empowered self where we don't even want a relationship, not out of like, I'm not doing that again. It's just like, I love myself. I just want to be with myself for a while, right? And that's what I did. I was just like, right, and now I'm here and magic's unfolding and with complete freedom. But it's just like, I really had to share that because it's really, really potent of why do we still feel deeply connected like that? Yeah, when it's all toxic, right? So make sure you do that energetically unhooking process. And you can do that for any relationship you've been in your past. And it's actually really good to do it. It's in the third eye chakra consciousness. I'm teaching you guys, right? To do that is called a relationship life review. And it's a huge freaking process. But you go through every relationship you've ever been with in your entire life like that. And you unhook from all of them. So then you've got a clear slate. And it's so important, remember, to write what you actually want. Because you've got this clear space. You don't want other shit just coming in. You want to create that. Yeah. All right. Doreen says that resonates too for me, except I'm grieving and it's very painful. Yeah. The grief is important to walk through. The grief is important to feel. 100%. Like, so important. It's so important. Okay. Leanne says, I don't think I would have been able to reach the point I'm at without doing the work in Hannah's and our tribe support. Yeah. It's such a big support in there, right? I love that you're in there, Leanne. You've grown so much. I'm so proud of you. Doreen says, it's like being given a box of darkness. Just shine your loving light upon it. Yeah, not easy to face our grief. Not easy to feel. Not many people walk through that excruciating grief and pain, but it is like the biggest gift you can give yourself because, as you said, it's a box of darkness. And when we actually feel it, the light is able to come in. What do they say? The crack is where the light comes in or something? Is that what they say? Same. Yeah. All right. Let me check that I've covered this. Okay. So why such a tie? Why did we work each other out so much when it could have worked out if we'd come from love instead of fear, the ego one? So the thing with like the ego one, what I want to say to that is that some people are ready for love and some people are not. And that's kind of that's kind of bullshit too, Hannah, because ultimately back then, for me personally, my intuition told me to leave and I didn't. Now, what would have happened if I, did listen to my intuition? I have no idea. I have no idea whatsoever, right? But at the same time, I've become the person I am now. So there's no like, oh, that was bad, you should have done this, or you should have done that. There's none of that. Yeah, it's all learning and growth. But when you say, when it could have worked out if we'd come from love instead of fear, like it could have. If two people were willing to do the work. There comes a point in time, right, and this happened in the relationship I was talking about, the 5-year one, that towards the end there when I'd started to step into this person more and more, who I am today, And then he ended up turning around and saying that, you know, probably 6 months later. I was like, well, that's done for me. I knew there was no going back from that. You know, but in that process, I was like, okay, you know, maybe it can work, and exploring bits and pieces. But again, it was still like whip around, and it would be like, well, you were with those men, you know. And I was like, wow, hang on a second, we weren't together. And I said to him at one point lovingly, I said, this is still coming up 5 years later. I said, you haven't worked on this wound. And that started, you know, 2 years into it, sort of thing. You know what I mean? So when you say, you know, it could have worked if we'd come from love instead of fear, I'm like, yeah, when two people doing the work, it works. If one person's doing the work and the other person's not willing to do the work, then it becomes a conscious choice of the person doing the work. Am I staying or am I going? Yeah, do I want this sort of a relationship, or do I want something else? And that only comes from the conscious work, right? And we do the conscious cleanup before we leave, depending on the relationship. It's a highly violent DV relationship. I'm telling you, get out there and get support in that. First, right? It's no like do the spiritual work and then get out. It's kind of assess your situation and decide which one you do first, okay? You know, because that whole thing, if we'd come from love instead of fear, the ego won, you know. And the other thing I just want to really point out, and this is why I'm saying to you, Doreen, you know, like make sure you are grieving, like purposely watch sad movies to make you cry, right? The cold's starting to get to me. I should have put my gloves on. My nose is running. It was warm in my car before and now it's cold. So, you know, from love instead of fear. The other thing is why we can't let go is because we haven't grieved. So yes, doing the process that I mentioned in this video, but the other piece to it is you haven't grieved yet. You might have cried and been sad about it, but you haven't fully grieved. Because when you're fully grieved, you're able to let go. Yeah, really important note, okay? And maybe you're like, I don't want to let go. And it's like, well, do you really want to carry those bricks around in your heart? Like, you don't have to let go. Like, I still love my ex. I love him because he made me turn into this person I am now. But it's not like, oh, I love him, like a toxic, want sex with him love. There's such a different feeling. It's like, man, I have so much respect for you. I love you because of what you taught me, and who I am today and where I am today is because of what we walked through together. For that, I am eternally grateful. I love you for that. But it's a different sort of love, right? So it's so important. But I have gone through like howling on the floor, crying about things over that 5 years, trust me, right? So easy to think differently about it all these years down the track. Missed out on a soulmate for compatibility. Was there even one though? So, and the thing is, you know, like that's the thing, you know, easy to think differently about it all these years down the track. And that's the thing, we forget the shit stuff and we just remember the good stuff, right? We remember the good feelings, right? And that's why doing that process can really help. But also, you know, all these years down the track, like again, you haven't grieved. Yeah, really important to note. When you say missed out in soulmate for compatibility, was there even though? Like, you know, and that's the thing, we think it is when we feel that sort of a chemistry, but if you've not experienced healthy love, then you probably haven't experienced your soulmate. I don't know, just saying from experience, and this tiny bit of experience in the past few weeks, maybe. I'm not saying anything else apart from that. Oh no, it can't, the comment's not coming up. Okay, so, and Leanne says, hope can be a negative thing sometimes. Something else my ex taught me. I always held on to hope, going back every time. Yes. I don't know why those comments are not loading. Let me have a look here. If I click on it, it kind of disappears. As the dogs start barking. Oh, my nose. I need to bring tissues with me. I'm like, I'll be fine. I won't get cold. I get hot on live stream. I'm like, forget that I'm in Victoria. It's a different cold down here. It's not the tropics, Hannah. All right, let's just turn this down. Okay. Hope can be a negative thing sometimes. Something else my ex taught me. I always held on to hope, going back every time with new strategies, thinking if I could just do it this way. And I want to point out that sometimes that's a learning process in itself. You know, like I had all those sessions with Lois, my mentor, and I did that. You know, I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, maybe it is me. And I go and work on myself, get more tools, like change myself, go back into the relationship. And I'm like, well, it's still the same in a way. Like it'd always be better in a little bit, but it's still the same, right? you're just watching about the masculine. Yeah, this is kind of like a follow-on from it. I know I've repeated some bits in it, but I've just given another healing process in here actually. But yeah, it's this, I think, Leanne, that's a part of us learning that actually no, like sometimes we can shift and change our relationship from us and the inside out only. And sometimes it gets to a point where we're like, actually, this isn't serving me anymore. It's actually doing more damage than it is good. And sometimes we get really strong wake-up signs from the universe if we're not listening to that message. But I think that that's a big part of the process of being able to do that too, yeah. And the other thing I just want to point out here, just on my little notes that I'd put in to remind me of what I was talking about on this live stream, was also the thing of like, because I got that message in the group this morning and I was like, I'm going to live stream on this because there's so much I want to say to this. It's really important. And hence me being here now. And then I sent it to myself so I know what I was talking about for this afternoon. But then this thing came up as maybe like my doubts and my fears, right? And I said, it was like, but who am I to talk about this stuff? Who am I to talk about this relationship stuff? And the thing that I just want to share about that is like, I've been in that codependent, toxic relationship 5 years plus other shit in the side in between all of that as well, right? If you've been following me for a while, you'll know the history. And it's so interesting that the last 2 years of that 5-year relationship that I spoke about was when I started coming online. And once I started, probably about 18 months after that, it was about 2 years into it, I started, my clients, I started getting really busy in my business. My business grew exponentially and is still growing exponentially today. Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. I love you all. And what I found really interesting is because I would share about, healing from codependent, toxic relationships and sharing my story and my heart and soul online and everything like that I would get a lot of clients. And the first thing that would come in, on the 21-day shifter or anything like my programs is about relationships. And, there was times that, and I just channel the messages, like I'm an intuitive healer and life purpose activator. And what I do with my clients is I channel messages from spirit. It's kind of like somebody asks me a question and I receive an answer. Like that's just what I do as a healer, whether you're talking to me here or online or whatever, wherever it is, I just get answers. That's just how it's my gift or something. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm like having all these clients and I catch myself at times and I'm like, but who am I to talk about this relationship stuff? Like at the time I was coming out of that 5-year relationship. And there was like, a break in between, me being here today and that 5-year relationship. But at the end of that 5-year relationship, started getting all these clients about the relationship questions. And I'd say all this stuff and I'd channel these things and I'd get all these tools and I've created all these tools in my business and the third eye chakra and relationships to heal this and heal that and blah, 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 blah. And I'd be working with my clients and they're having amazing, like huge shifts. And I'd catch myself at times and I'd literally even say to some of my clients, I'm like, but I'm not even in a relationship and I haven't experienced a healthy relationship, but this is the intuitive message that is coming through and this is why I'm sharing it with you. And when I'm in a healthy relationship, this is what I will do when stuff comes up. So it's kind of really interesting. So I was like, who am I to talk about this stuff? And I'm like, well, I've been working with clients for quite some time, having massive shifts with them. Well, they've been having massive shifts from doing the work, from what Spirit's been sharing with me to share with them, right? And I'm only passing the messages on. And I'm like, wow, that's a brilliant idea. Like, that's what I would do when I'm in a healthy relationship or my next relationship, right? So it's kind of really interesting. So Leanne says, yep, I did my first 21-day shifter with me, wanted to let go of my ex. Exactly, right? It's like, who am I to be helping these people? I've only been in these toxic relationships, but I've learned so much and it's led me to where I am now because I've done the work, right? And the work works when you work it. I always say that, right? And you guys experience it. I know you do. Who works with me anyway? Yes, you've been blue today. You needed this. You're so welcome, Doreen. I'm so glad that that's helped you. So Tess says, me too. Actually, since last night, I'm so teary and feeling overwhelmed. Okay, please. It's been quite heavy energy the past few days for a lot of people. So if there is grief coming up for you, please feel it. Please feel it. When we are able to feel these emotions, it only helps to shift it out of our heart. And when we shift this heaviness out of our heart, that's when it lets in the new stuff, yeah? Oh my goodness, my nose is running because it's so cold and I'm like, can you guys see that? Next time I should bring tissues. All right. Okay, so if this if you feel that this has helped you, please comment below. Please share it if you feel it can help somebody else, or if it's messages that they need to hear. Comment their name below or share it in a private message. If you're watching on YouTube, you can remember to like and subscribe. And the Life Purpose Accelerator is open. So if you are really wanting to accelerate and move fast through all your shit, having somebody who's walked through it makes such a difference. Yeah. So with the Life Purpose Accelerator, you get 12 months access to me and being able to ask me questions on WhatsApp any time of day or night. Plus there's phone calls that we have in there that give you that clarity and that boost to be able to shift really fast. We go deep. As you guys know, I work very deeply. It is my gift, and we shift right at the core to accelerate your life purpose. This is the inner circle, and applications are open now. So please send me a message if you'd like details about that, or you can find it on my page, and I shall see you guys soon. Yes, please watch the replay if you missed it, because there's some gold pieces of processes in there that can really help. Yeah. Yes, you're so welcome. So glad that it's helped you, Glenn and Natalie. You're so welcome. All right, I love you guys. I shall see you soon.